I was called into the boardroom at 9 a.m. By 9:10, I had been publicly blamed for a fake scandal I didn't even know existed. The conference room felt like a courtroom. HR sat with a thick folder. Legal had their laptops open. My boss Mark leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, wearing that smug expression I'd grown to hate. Behind them, a projection screen showed screenshots of social media posts and emails. "These posts came from your accounts," HR said, sliding papers across the table. "Leaked client information. Negative comments about the company. This is grounds for immediate termination." I stared at the screenshots. My name, my profile picture. But I'd never written these posts. Never leaked anything. My heart pounded as I scanned the room. 20 colleagues watched through the glass walls. Some looked shocked. Others whispered. "I didn't write these," I said quietly. Mark shook his head. "The evidence speaks for itself. You're suspended pending investigation." Security appeared at the door. I gathered my things in silence, feeling every pair of eyes burning into my back. By lunch, everyone would know. By evening, I'd be the company villain. But as I walked out, one thought echoed in my mind. Someone had planned this perfectly. No one would return my calls. I was locked out of every system. Slack, email, even LinkedIn admin rights. My work phone went straight to voicemail. My badge wouldn't open the building. When I tried logging into my company accounts, red error messages flashed. Access denied. It was like I'd never existed. Sarah from marketing, who I'd grabbed coffee with every Tuesday for 2 years, ignored my texts. James from sales, who always joked around during meetings, left me on read. Even my project teammates acted like I was invisible. I drove to the office building and sat in the parking lot, watching my former colleagues walk in and out. Some glanced at my car but quickly looked away. Word had spread fast. The rumor mill was working overtime. My phone buzzed with notifications. Someone had screenshot the leaked posts and shared them on LinkedIn. Comments poured in from people I'd never met. Another corporate sellout. Can't trust anyone these days. Hope she learns her lesson. The isolation hit harder than the accusations. These people had been my work family. We'd celebrated birthdays, shared weekend stories, complained about deadlines together. Now they treated me like poison. I realized this wasn't just about firing me. This was about erasing me completely. I visited a friend in IT. Quietly, off the record. Danny worked the night shift in the basement server room. We'd been buddies since orientation 3 years ago. He was one of the few people who didn't avoid my calls. "This is crazy, Sophia," he said, pulling up files on his monitor. "I've been digging into those leaked posts. The metadata doesn't match your usual activity." He showed me the technical details. IP addresses, timestamps, device signatures. The leaked posts came from a computer I'd never used, from a location I'd never been to, at times when I could prove I was somewhere else. "Look at this." Danny pointed at the screen. "That viral post about the client list? It was uploaded Tuesday at 2:47 p.m., but you were giving your quarterly presentation then. I have the meeting logs right here." My hands shook as I stared at the evidence. Someone had used my identity, my photos, my name to create fake posts. They'd made burner accounts that looked exactly like mine. The attention to detail was scary. "Danny, this is proof I was framed." He nodded grimly. "The question is, who has access to create fake accounts this sophisticated?" We both knew the answer. Only someone with serious technical resources and inside knowledge could pull this off. My boss once told me, "It's not about being right. It's about being in control." Mark had always been threatened by me. During my first year, I'd suggested improvements to our client management system. He shot them down publicly, then implemented them 6 months later as his own idea. When I landed the Smithson account, our biggest client in 2 years, he made sure his name was on all the press releases. But lately, things had gotten worse. I'd been building relationships with the executive team. The CEO praised my innovative campaigns. The board invited me to strategy meetings that Mark usually attended alone. I could see the panic in his eyes during those sessions. 3 months ago, he pulled me aside after a successful product launch. "You're moving too fast," he said. "Some people might see that as threatening." I'd laughed it off then. Now I understood it was a warning. Mark didn't just want me gone. He wanted me destroyed. He wanted my reputation so damaged that no competitor would hire me, no client would trust me, no colleague would vouch for me. This wasn't about poor performance or budget cuts. This was about eliminating a threat to his position. And he'd played it perfectly, until now. I got a DM from a name I didn't recognize. "Hi, I think my uncle's lying about you." The message came from ZoeM22 on Instagram. Her profile showed a young woman with bright pink hair and a nose ring. According to her bio, she was a marketing intern somewhere downtown. I stared at the message for 10 minutes before responding. "Who's your uncle?" "Mark Webb. I started interning at his company last month. I heard him talking about you at family dinner Sunday. He was bragging." My blood ran cold. Mark Webb. Of course. What did he say? He said he neutralized a threat at work, that he'd found a way to get rid of someone who was getting too big for their boots. He was drunk and thought it was funny. But when I saw your name in the news today, I put it together. Zoe sent me a screenshot of a family photo from her phone. There was Mark, arm around a woman I assumed was his wife, grinning at a restaurant table. The timestamp showed last Sunday, 3 days before I was framed. "He planned this whole thing," she continued. "I have proof, but I'm scared. He's family, and I need this internship. But what he did to you isn't right." For the first time in days, I felt hope. Finally, someone believed me. She sneaked into his office and recovered deleted messages. Zoe had access to the executive floor as an intern. During lunch breaks, when Mark was at his usual power meetings, she slipped into his office. She knew his password. It was his dog's name plus his birth year. Classic boomer move. I found his deleted Teams messages. She texted me that evening. Screenshots attached. My hands shook as I opened the files. There it was, in black and white. Mark instructing someone named TechGuy88 to create fake social media accounts. Detailed conversations about copying my profile photos, mimicking my writing style, even coordinating the timing of the posts to maximum damage. One message made my stomach turn. "Make sure the client leak looks authentic. Include real names but outdated information. We want her credibility destroyed, not actual client relationships damaged." Another, "Timeline is key. Drop the first post Monday, let it simmer Tuesday, then release the big leak Wednesday morning. By the time she responds, the narrative will already be set." I forwarded everything to my lawyer immediately. She called within an hour. "Sophia, this isn't just workplace harassment. This is criminal fraud, defamation, and conspiracy. We're talking felony charges." For the first time since this nightmare began, I smiled. Turns out the niece has access to his personal cloud. "My uncle thinks I'm just some ditzy Gen Z intern," Zoe texted. "He gave me his personal laptop to learn Excel and forgot to log out of his cloud storage." What she found was a goldmine. Folders labeled Operation Cleanup, Reputation Management, and Sophia Situation. Inside were detailed plans spanning 3 months, showing this wasn't a sudden decision. It was a calculated campaign. The Sophia Situation folder contained research on my social media habits, screenshots of my successful projects, and notes about my growing influence with executives. One document, titled Threat Assessment, listed my strengths and how to weaponize them against me. Most chilling was a timeline document. Phase 1, plant seeds of doubt about Sophia's loyalty. Phase 2, create fake evidence of misconduct. Phase 3, public humiliation and termination. Phase 4, ensure no competitor will hire her. He'd even researched my personality type, predicting I'd go quiet and disappear rather than fight back publicly. That assumption would be his biggest mistake. But the smoking gun was a voice memo dated 2 weeks before my termination. Mark rehearsing his shocked disappointment speech for the boardroom. He'd practiced his reaction to discovering my betrayal. The man was a sociopath. But now I had proof. They think I'm curled up crying. I'm building a case. While Mark celebrated his victory with martinis at the company happy hour, I spent every waking moment documenting evidence. I created spreadsheets with timestamps, witness lists, and communication records. I organized screenshots, saved voice memos, and built a timeline that would make prosecutors weep with joy. I contacted former employees who'd been pushed out under suspicious circumstances. Linda from accounting, who'd been fired for budget irregularities that were never proven. James from product development, who'd been terminated for cultural fit issues right after proposing a revolutionary feature. The pattern was clear. Mark had been systematically eliminating anyone who threatened his position. I was just his most sophisticated target. My lawyer connected me with a private investigator who specialized in corporate fraud. Within a week, we had documented proof of at least 6 other employees who'd been framed or forced out through manufactured scandals. This isn't workplace politics, the investigator told me. This is organized criminal behavior. Your boss has been running a one-man mafia operation for years. I wasn't just seeking personal justice anymore. I was exposing a serial predator who'd destroyed careers and lives. The quiet phase was ending. Soon, it would be time to strike back. A mid-level HR rep asked to get coffee. Jennifer from HR had been at the company for 8 years. She'd always seemed nervous around Mark, but I'd never understood why. Now, sitting across from me at a corner cafe, she looked terrified. I should have spoken up during your hearing, she whispered, glancing around like we were being watched. I knew something was wrong. She explained that the original complaint against me had come through unusual channels. Instead of going through normal procedures, Mark had personally delivered the evidence to legal, demanding immediate action. I ran a basic IP trace on those posts, she said. Standard procedure. The address traced back to Mark's home network. I tried to include it in your file, but Mark insisted it was irrelevant, probably a coincidence. Jennifer had been documenting irregularities in Mark's termination patterns for months. She'd noticed that high-performing employees under his management had unusually high turnover rates, often leaving under mysterious circumstances. I have records going back 3 years, she said, sliding a flash drive across the table. Performance reviews that don't match termination reasons, complaints that disappeared, evidence that was ignored. She paused, coffee cup shaking in her hands. Sophia, I'll testify. I can't watch this happen anymore. But I need protection. If Mark finds out I helped you, I promised her safety. But inside, I was calculating revenge. Out of nowhere, I get a message. We saw what happened to you. Want to chat? The LinkedIn message came from John Briggs, creative director at Xenex Marketing, our biggest competitor. I'd admired their campaigns for years, but never thought they'd noticed me. We know you didn't leak anything, his message continued. Your work speaks for itself. We've been watching your campaigns for the Smithson account. Brilliant stuff. Want to grab lunch? The meeting felt surreal. John and his team knew every detail of my work, had studied my strategies, and clearly understood my value. They'd also done their research on Mark. We've been tracking talent at Webb & Associates for months, John explained. Several of our best hires came from there under suspicious circumstances. Mark has a reputation in the industry. They offered me a senior director position, 2 levels above my previous role, with a 40% salary increase and full creative control over major accounts. But the best part came next. We'd like you to lead a competitive analysis of Webb & Associates' recent client vulnerabilities, John said with a knowing smile. You'd be uniquely qualified to identify their weaknesses. I wasn't just getting a new job. I was getting a platform for professional payback. When do I start? Monday, if you're ready for war. I was more than ready. While he thinks I'm destroyed, I'm laying foundations. My new corner office had a view of Webb & Associates building. Every morning, I watched my former colleagues walk into work, unaware that their carefully constructed corporate hierarchy was about to implode. At Xenex, I built a timeline for what I called the reckoning. Phase 1, gather evidence and allies. Phase 2, strategic information releases. Phase 3, legal action. Phase 4, complete exposure. I wasn't rushing. Patience would be my weapon. I researched every client Mark had mismanaged, every employee he'd pushed out, every corner he'd cut. The picture that emerged was of a man who'd built his career on other people's work while systematically destroying anyone who threatened his narrative. I coordinated with my lawyer to time the legal filings for maximum impact. We'd hit him with defamation, fraud, and conspiracy charges right before the company's annual board review. The timing would ensure maximum chaos and media attention. Meanwhile, I began reaching out to industry journalists who covered corporate misconduct. I didn't mention names yet, just established relationships and credibility. Everything was falling into place. Mark thought he'd buried me. Instead, he'd given me the motivation and evidence I needed to bury him. His niece gets invited to his birthday dinner. She's wearing a mic. Mark turned 52 on a Thursday. His wife threw a family dinner at their favorite steakhouse, the kind of place where executives make deals over $200 bottles of wine. Zoe got a last-minute invitation. She wore a tiny recording device disguised as a necklace charm. By dessert, Mark was drunk and boastful, surrounded by family members who enabled his ego. "You should have seen her face in that boardroom," he slurred, cutting into his steak. "Thought she was so smart, building relationships with the board. But I showed them who really runs that department." His brother-in-law laughed. "What did you do, frame her for something?" "Didn't have to frame her," Mark grinned. "Just created a narrative that fit the evidence. Social media makes it so easy these days. Anyone can be anyone online." The table went quiet. Even his family seemed uncomfortable with the admission. "Mark," his wife said carefully, "you're talking about that employee who was fired last week? Sophia something?" "Sophia Rodriguez. Pain in my ass for 2 years. Always trying to outshine me, always suggesting improvements." He made air quotes mockingly. "Well, now she's radioactive. No one in this industry will touch her." Zoe sent me the recording that night. Clear audio, perfect confession, surrounded by witnesses. Game over. I file a formal defamation suit, quietly, with a subpoena for all Slack and cloud records. My lawyer filed the paperwork on a Friday afternoon. Standard practice to catch opponents off guard before the weekend. By Monday morning, Webb & Associates' legal team would be scrambling. The lawsuit demanded damages for defamation, fraud, conspiracy, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. We asked for $2.8 million, enough to get serious media attention, but not so high that it seemed frivolous. The subpoena was the real weapon. It demanded all digital communications, cloud storage files, and metadata from Mark's work and personal accounts. Everything Zoe had found, plus anything else he might be hiding. Within hours of the filing, my phone started ringing. Webb & Associates legal counsel wanted to discuss a resolution. The CEO's assistant called to schedule an informal conversation. Even Mark himself sent a text. "We should talk." I ignored them all. By Tuesday, industry blogs were reporting the lawsuit. By Wednesday, it was trending on LinkedIn. Comments poured in from former Webb & Associates employees sharing their own stories of suspicious terminations and workplace retaliation. The narrative was shifting. I wasn't the disgruntled former employee anymore. I was the whistleblower, exposing a pattern of corporate abuse. Mark was about to learn what real damage looked like. I anonymously leaked the metadata report. Through a burner account, I shared Danny's technical analysis on Reddit's r/legal advice forum. The post was titled, "My former employer framed me using fake social media accounts. Here's the digital proof." The tech-savvy community devoured the evidence. Users with cybersecurity backgrounds verified the metadata, confirmed the IP address discrepancies, and explained in simple terms how sophisticated the frame job had been. Within 24 hours, the post had 15,000 upvotes and 3,200 comments. Tech blogs picked it up. Cybersecurity influencers shared it. The story began trending on Twitter with hashtags like digital frame job and #corporate fraud. Business journalists started digging. They contacted Webb & Associates for comment, forcing the company into crisis management mode. Their initial response was weak. "We stand by our investigation and are confident in our findings." But the internet wasn't buying it. LinkedIn users began sharing their own stories of Mark's behavior. Former employees created a hashtag, #Webgate. The company's reputation was spiraling. I watched from my new office as news vans appeared outside Webb & Associates. Mark's car was followed by reporters asking questions he couldn't answer. The whisper campaign had become a roar, and this was just the beginning. She posts a cryptic TikTok, "What if your boss is lying to you?" Zoe's video was perfectly crafted for maximum viral potential. She sat in her car, pink hair catching the morning light, speaking directly to the camera with the authenticity only Gen Z could pull off. POV, your uncle destroys someone's career at his company, then brags about it at family dinner thinking you won't do anything about it, she captioned the video. Sometimes the call is coming from inside the house. She didn't mention names or companies, but provided just enough context for viewers to piece together the story. The video exploded overnight. 2.3 million views, 400,000 likes, 50,000 shares. Comments flooded in from young workers sharing their own stories of toxic bosses and workplace manipulation. The video sparked conversations about generational differences in workplace ethics and the power of social media to expose corporate misconduct. News outlets picked up the story. Gen Z intern exposes uncle's corporate corruption became a trending headline. Zoe's inbox filled with interview requests from major publications. Mark's social media accounts went private. His LinkedIn profile disappeared. His company email started bouncing back with out-of-office replies. The hunter had become the hunted, and the whole world was watching. The company's PR statement is full of holes. The internet notices. Webb and Associates' crisis management team released a statement that read like it was written by a committee of lawyers trying to say nothing while defending everything. We take all allegations seriously and are conducting a thorough internal review. We remain confident in our hiring and termination practices and stand behind our leadership team. The internet tore it apart within hours. Reddit users highlighted the lack of specific denials. Twitter followers noted the generic corporate speak. LinkedIn commenters pointed out that a thorough internal review would be meaningless if the accusations against leadership were true. A former Webb and Associates employee posted, "This is exactly the kind of non-answer Mark would force us to write when clients complained about his behavior." Industry analysts began questioning the company's stability. Stock price dropped 12% in 2 days. Major clients requested meetings to discuss concerns. The Smithson account, my biggest success, sent a letter requesting clarification about the leadership situation. Local news stations picked up the story. A technology podcast dedicated an entire episode to corporate gaslighting in the digital age. Business schools began using the case as an example of how not to handle a PR crisis. Mark's perfectly planned frame job had backfired spectacularly. 3 department heads resign in protest. Sarah Wolf, Director of Creative Services, was the first to go. Her resignation letter was posted on Twitter within hours. "I cannot in good conscience continue working for an organization that destroys employees through manufactured scandals." John Park from Business Development followed the next day. His LinkedIn post was more direct. "When you work for someone who frames their own employees, you become complicit in their crimes. I refuse to be complicit." The third resignation came from an unexpected source. Mark's own assistant, Jennifer Walsh, who had worked for him for 5 years. Her departure was the most damaging because she had access to everything: calendars, emails, phone calls, meeting notes. Her resignation letter, shared widely on social media, included this devastating paragraph. "I have watched my supervisor systematically destroy the careers of talented employees through lies, manipulation, and fraud. I have copies of communications that prove these allegations. I will cooperate fully with any investigations." The board called an emergency meeting. By Friday afternoon, Mark was placed on administrative leave pending investigation. His office was locked. His access was revoked. Security escorted him from the building. The man who had orchestrated my public humiliation was now experiencing his own. His wife finds out. Rebecca Webb had been married to Mark for 15 years. She'd built her identity around being the supportive wife of a successful executive. The recording from the birthday dinner shattered that illusion. Zoe, feeling guilty about the family fallout, had played the audio for Rebecca privately before it went public. The conversation didn't go well. "I thought I married a good man," Rebecca posted on Facebook. "I was wrong. I cannot and will not support someone who destroys innocent people for sport." She filed for divorce on a Wednesday. By Thursday, Mark was served with papers. By Friday, he was moving into a hotel. The divorce filing became public record. Local newspapers covered it as part of the larger scandal. Webb executive's wife files for divorce amid fraud allegations. Made the business section of the city's major paper. Mark's personal life crumbled as quickly as his professional one. Friends distanced themselves. Country club memberships were reviewed. His children, both in college, stopped taking his calls. I felt a moment of sympathy watching his complete downfall. Then I remembered sitting in that boardroom, watching my colleagues stare through glass walls while my reputation was destroyed for his entertainment. Sympathy passed quickly. The company begins a full investigation. I give them everything. The new interim CEO, brought in by the board to clean house, requested a meeting. Patricia Williams was a crisis management specialist with a reputation for transparency and accountability. "We want to make this right," she told me in a conference room where I'd been humiliated just 2 months earlier. "Tell us everything." I presented a timeline spanning 3 years, documented evidence of systematic employee targeting, financial records showing the cost of Mark's behavior to the company, and testimonials from 6 former employees who'd been pushed out under suspicious circumstances. The investigation revealed that Mark had cost the company over $8 million in turnover, legal settlements, and lost clients. His pattern of destroying high-performing employees had driven away their best talent for years. "We're prepared to offer you a settlement," Patricia said after reviewing the evidence. I declined. "I don't want money," I told her. "I want reform. I want systems in place so this never happens to anyone else. And I want Mark prosecuted to the full extent of the law." She nodded slowly. "What do you want from us?" "I want my reputation restored publicly. I want the victims he hurt before me to receive justice, and I want to help you rebuild. I'm invited back, but I don't return as an employee." The board offered me Mark's job. Director of Marketing, corner office, $180,000 salary, full benefits, and a public apology for the company's failures in leadership and oversight. Instead, I countered with a consulting contract, 6 months at $25,000 per month to rebuild the department, implement new oversight systems, and restore client relationships. They could pay for my expertise without me being tied to their recovery process. From Mark's former office, I watched Webb and Associates transform. New policies for employee complaints, mandatory ethics training for management, an anonymous reporting system that actually protected whistleblowers. I hired back every qualified employee Mark had pushed out. Linda returned to accounting with a promotion. James rejoined product development as a team lead. The culture shifted from fear-based hierarchy to collaborative innovation. The first time I sat behind Mark's desk, I thought about that boardroom humiliation. How powerless I'd felt. How certain he'd been that he'd destroyed me. Now I was rewriting his legacy, undoing his damage, and building something better from the wreckage he'd left behind. The view from the top was satisfying, but the real victory was in the healing. He begs for a meeting. I accept. In public. Mark called from a blocked number on a Tuesday morning. His voice was shaky, desperate in a way I'd never heard. "Sophia, please. I know I messed up. I need to explain. Can we meet? Just 5 minutes." I agreed to meet him at the coffee shop across from Webb & Associates. Lunch hour. Maximum visibility. He looked terrible. Unshaven, rumpled clothes, dark circles under his eyes. The confident executive who'd orchestrated my destruction was gone, replaced by a broken man facing criminal charges. "I'm sorry," he said immediately. "I panicked. You were so good at your job, and I felt threatened. I made terrible decisions." I listened quietly while he rambled about stress, insecurity, and desperation. How his own job had felt threatened. How he'd convinced himself I was trying to undermine him. "I destroyed your life," he finished. "I know that. What can I do to make it right?" I leaned forward. "Mark, you didn't destroy my life. You revealed your character, and that revelation destroyed yours." I stood to leave. "The criminal trial starts next month. Tell it to the judge." I walked away without looking back. Redemption for the others. The most satisfying part wasn't Mark's downfall. It was rebuilding what he'd broken. Linda from accounting hadn't just been fired for budget irregularities. Mark had blamed her for his own expense account fraud, forcing her into bankruptcy fighting legal costs. I helped her file a wrongful termination suit and connected her with financial counseling to rebuild her credit. James from product development had been blackballed in the industry after Mark spread rumors about his attitude problems. I wrote recommendation letters, made introductions, and helped him land a position at a startup where his innovations were valued. 6 other former employees received apologies, financial settlements, and cleared references. The company established a victim compensation fund for anyone harmed by Mark's systematic targeting. But the real justice was cultural. The fear that had permeated Webb & Associates for years evaporated. Employees spoke up in meetings, innovation flourished, client relationships improved. The Smithson account, which had been considering leaving during the scandal, signed a 3-year extension after meeting the new team. We hadn't just removed a toxic leader. We'd proven that accountability and transparency could actually improve business results. The final email. 6 months later, as my consulting contract ended, my phone chimed with an email from a familiar address. Sophia, Mark wrote from his personal Gmail account. The trial starts next week. My lawyer says I'll probably get 2 years. I've lost everything. My job, my marriage, my reputation, my kids' respect. I can't sleep. I can't eat. Every news article about the case mentions how I systematically destroyed innocent employees' careers. They call me a corporate predator. Please, just tell them the truth about what kind of person you think I am. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed my response. Mark, I did tell them the truth. The truth is that you framed an innocent employee to protect your own insecurities. The truth is that you destroyed careers for sport. The truth is that you're facing consequences for your own choices. The truth sounds exactly like what you're hearing in the news. I paused, then added, I hope you use your time in prison to become a better person. The victims you hurt deserve at least that much. I clicked send, then blocked his email address permanently. Some chapters deserve to stay closed. The press interview. Forbes reached out 6 months after the criminal trial ended. Mark had received 18 months in federal prison for fraud and conspiracy. The story had become a business school case study in corporate ethics and digital evidence. You've become a symbol of workplace justice, the reporter told me during our video call. What advice do you have for other employees facing retaliation? I thought carefully before answering. Document everything. Build alliances. Don't let shame or fear silence you. And remember, sometimes the people trying to destroy you end up destroying themselves. The article titled, How One Employee's Fight for Justice Exposed Corporate Corruption, was shared over 50,000 times. It spawned speaking engagements, consulting offers, and messages from employees around the world facing similar situations. But the best response came from Zoe, who had become a workplace ethics advocate on social media. My uncle taught me that family loyalty means protecting people from harm, including harm caused by family members. Sometimes doing the right thing means betraying the wrong people. The story wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice, accountability, and the power of truth. I'm on stage, giving a talk on workplace resilience. Someone asks, how did you stay calm? The conference room was packed with HR professionals, executives, and workplace advocates. I'd been invited to speak about building ethical corporate cultures and protecting employees from retaliation. During the Q&A, a young woman raised her hand. Throughout this whole ordeal, you never seemed to panic or lash out publicly. How did you stay so calm when your world was falling apart? I smiled, remembering those dark days when I thought my career was over, when colleagues I'd trusted turned their backs, when it seemed like lies would triumph over truth. Because silence isn't weakness, I said. Sometimes it's strategy. When someone is trying to destroy you with noise and chaos, your power lies in careful preparation and strategic action. Let them burn energy on drama while you build an unshakable case. I paused, looking out at the audience of professionals who understood workplace politics and power dynamics. Mark thought he'd buried me. Instead, he gave me the motivation and evidence I needed to expose him. He taught me that the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building something better from the wreckage they leave behind. The applause was thunderous, and that's when I knew I had won.